I recently attended a property management seminar, and one of the speakers was talking about the profitability of property management companies. And their results were really kind of sad because it was basically this: guys, our industry isn't making much money. You're not making much money. You're not very profitable. I don't like that. I don't think that should be the case. So one thing I want to talk about as far as an easy way to up your profitability a little bit is through the collection and retention of late fees that your tenants pay. Now, I know this can be a little bit controversial and who gets them and how that works, so I'm just going to tell you kind of the way we do it and why it's been very successful and easy for us to use this as a profit center for our business. Now, the first question you have to ask yourself is this: who's getting those late fees? Who should get those late fees? Should they go to the property owner? Should they go to you as the PM company? Maybe you're going to split them 50-50 between you and the PM company. We've done it all different ways. We typically, though, will take the late fee. Now, if we get an owner who asks, well, gosh, why are you getting that late fee? I'm the one that has to pay my mortgage late. I'm the one that has to incur the problems. Shouldn't that late fee go to me? It's a fair question, but we explain it kind of this way and say, look, Mr. Owner, here's the way our late fee collection process works. When a tenant doesn't pay their late, we jump on that. We're very, very serious with it. We're on the phone with that individual. If we're not able to reach them, we're driving out to their property. If they haven't paid, we're preparing the legal state-required paperwork and having it physically served upon their property. We're continuing on through the eviction process if necessary. Now, we don't charge you anything for that, Mr. Owner, but the way we offset those hard costs to us is if we are successful in collecting a late fee, we would retain that late fee for our efforts in collecting it. But we don't charge you any of those hard costs to us, Mr. Owner. And we find that most owners are just fine with that. If anything, at least split it 50-50 with the owner. But you should be taking a portion of that late fee, at least to cover the hard costs you're incurring in that collection process. Now, the second thing you want to do is make sure you're setting your expectations with your tenants at move-in. So, for example, our move-in letter has big bold across the paper in a kind way after we explain the information that late fee or rents are due on the first day of each month. Late fees are charged as of I think we're the 3rd. Late fees are charged after the 3rd. No exceptions are made for the waiving of late fees. So we make it very, very clear in a kind way on the front end that, look, if you're going to pay late, you can expect to pay a late fee. So much of the potential pushback you may get from a resident who pays late can be offset on the front end if you simply state beforehand, look, if you're going to pay late, expect to pay a late fee because we have to enforce the terms of the lease agreement. Now, the third thing that's important is to systemize your collection process. Don't make it new every time. This is not a case-by-case scenario. You're going to do this the same way every time for every property and every tenant. What that means is if your lease agreement says that the rent's due on the 1st and late fees are charged as of the 2nd, guess what? You charge late fees as of the 2nd. So when it's 9 a.m. and your lease, by the way, should have a time. Say what time the rent is considered late. Don't just say late as of the 2nd, because what does that mean? Does that mean as of open of the business on the 2nd? Does it mean midnight on the 2nd? Does it mean 12 o'clock noon, close of business? You don't know. So put a time in there. So maybe it's 12 o'clock noon. If your rent is not received by 12 o'clock noon on the 3rd day of each month, a late fee will be assessed. So you have a cutoff date now, and you're going to systematize that process, meaning at 12 o'clock noon on the 3rd, whatever rents are not received, you're going to click that charge late fee button in your software, and boom, everybody is charged. Now is when you initiate that collection process, meaning now is when you start making your phone calls. If you get notices out on the 3rd day or the 4th day of the month, as we do, you get those notices prepared and immediately out to every single person that has not paid. Doesn't matter if they've called your office to ask for an extension or not, they're still going to get that notice because that is part of your process and you're required to do it the same way for everybody every single time. Number 4, incentivize your collection person. Look, I hate the idea of having to be the one to tell tenants, no, we're not going to waive your late fee and have to kind of collect these things. That's a hard position to be in. One thing we do to incentivize that person, they get a percentage of every late fee they collect. Now let me ask you, if your person is getting a percentage of every late fee they collect, are they more or less likely to want to waive that late fee on that tenant's behalf? They're less likely. Why? Because if they waive it, they're letting money go out of their pocket. So we give our person that's in charge of the collections, the one that has to have those difficult conversations, they get a percentage of those late fees that are collected. That incentivizes them to appropriately charge late fees and not waive them for everybody. So incentivizing them has been a great way to increase the amount of late fees that we're able to collect on the front end. Now, another way to work to your advantage is through fair housing. In this case, fair housing, for once, can be your friend, because here's how you can tell a tenant or explain to a tenant why you can't waive a late fee. They say, gosh, can't you waive this for me? Mr. Tenant, listen, Fair housing dictates that I treat every single tenant exactly the same. If I waive your late fee, I've got to waive everybody's late fee. I'd love to help you out, but the feds won't let me do it. They say I've got to do it the same way every single time. Now, should you ever waive a late fee? That's up to you. Maybe you do. And we do from time to time waive late fees, but here's a couple things. Number one, we don't waive the late fee, we will reduce the late fee. So instead of waiving it for them, offer to drop it in half. You still want to have something to offset your hard costs of collection. So if you drop it in half, you're still getting something for that. If you're going to waive it, I would say don't waive it more than once. Record it, the fact that you waived it. Don't get in the habit of waiving late fees, because when you get in that habit, then they're going to ask, then they're going to push back. So this is something that you can do every time. You can systematize the process. This can become a significant profit center for your business if you do it right. But even if it's not significant, it will at least bring in the income necessary to offset those hard costs that you incur in your collection of late fees. I encourage you strongly to get this in place for the good of yourself and your business.